Good evening and welcome to Sunset News on this Thursday evening. I am Aina Koyo alongside.
I'm Esther Kamati. Thank you so much, Anna, for having me.
It's definitely a pleasure. We are bringing you news, community stories, weather, economic news, and so much more. In the news tonight, Bank of Windhoek employee Nico Rabebe, age 30, who has been on the run since January after allegedly stealing 2 million Namibian dollars from the bank's Opuo branch, has been arrested. Kunene Police Regional Commander Commissioner James Nderura confirmed to NBC that Rabebe was arrested this morning at around 7 a.m. at his girlfriend's house after he allegedly told her to contact the police as he wanted to hand himself over to the police. He was arrested in Opuo and is expected to make his first court appearance between Monday and Friday. What do you make from this turn of events? I mean, who would have ever thought that he would turn himself in?
I think this is one of the stories which blew up in the country this year so far, and it's going to be interesting to see how it actually unfolds. We do expect Rabebe to appear in court very soon, and I'm sure that the entire nation will be keeping up, will be trying to update themselves on this case. I think it's particularly very, very interesting to see what it is actually regarding the amounts, because there has been inconsistency with regard to what we are told from the police report and what Bank Windhoek is actually telling us as to how much exactly went missing. And also interesting to see that he handed himself over. I don't think anybody expected that move.
Yeah.
A lot of Namibians anticipated that he would be on the run for a very long time.
Definitely. I'm one of those Namibians. Now, moving over to our next story, the CEO of Botswana Wildlife Producer Association, Isak Theophilus, stressed the impacts if hunting should be banned in light of the UK considering a bill to import hunting trophies. Tourism Minister of Botswana, Dumezoedi Mthikulu, also expressed his concerns with regards to the proposed bill by the UK to ban imports of hunting trophies. They addressed media from several African countries in Gaborone.
That we do not get a lot of exports to the UK at the moment, but the domino effect of one country in Europe banning hunting, others will follow suit. If you take our neighbors to the west, Namibia, for instance, their game farms depend largely on hunters from Germany. And Germany is already proposing a similar hunting ban. I think France is already, it has already passed the law or something like that. Belgium is also on the way. So the domino effect, the overall effect will have a huge impact on the industry in Southern Africa. We in Southern Africa are saying we should not be punished for good management practices that were put in place. Europe has got their own trophy animals that they hunt. We don't. I'll talk like comrade across the border. We don't bother them what they are doing in their countries. They should allow us to use our resources sustainably. We are not saying let us wipe all the wildlife in Southern Africa. Here I'm talking about Southern Africa because it's a resource. If you talk about Gaza, for instance, there was a survey last year. The total elephant population in the Gaza area is 230,000. 130,000 of them are in Botswana. So you can imagine the damage, the conflicts that go with a growing elephant population. So we are saying we want to utilize our resources for the well-being of our rural populations. Those are the people who bear the brunt of living side by side with wildlife.
Esther, what a very interesting story there. Could you round up your thoughts? on this particular issue?
I think the CEO there made a very, very important point, which is that each country has its own policies when it comes to regulating particular activities, and in this case, hunting and trophy hunting added. So he's basically saying that the United Kingdom and all other countries that want to ban this trophy hunting and so forth should just respect the policies of other countries, because at the end of the day, Namibia and Botswana, I think, are among the countries that have a very huge population of particular wildlife. And he also makes reference to the fact that these hunting policies are targeted at sustainable hunting, and in this way they also help to control actually the population of these wild animals, which are wreaking havoc in some of the countries. For instance, in the Kavango East and West, we hear almost every day that somebody has been attacked by a wild animal. So it also kind of helps to curb that human-wildlife conflict.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, every house with its rules.
Exactly.
All right, moving over to our next story. Graham Hopwood, Executive Director of the Institute for Public Policy Research, addresses the publication launch on how a fish rot scandal has affected the human rights of the fishermen who lost their jobs due to the fishing quotas.
And human rights by looking directly at the fish rot issue. And we worked hard to make sure that those workers who we have interviewed and are involved in this research project were the ones who lost out, who were working either on the NAMSOG vessels that lost when NAMSOG lost quotas that were diverted, or on some Samheri-linked vessels that eventually stopped functioning or went out in Namibian waters in 2019 and 2020. So we're not looking at the overall situation in the fishing industry, although that's certainly worthy of study and recommendation about possible reforms. We're looking particularly at this link between the fish rot corruption and the impacts on workers and their families and their communities thereafter, after they lost their jobs.
Esther, what do you think, or rather, why do you think this study is essential? Why do we need such studies in our community?
This study was particularly special, important, because they actually reached out to the affected fishermen who lost their jobs or who were directly affected by the effects of corruption and the fish rot scandal in its entirety, and actually had interviews with them. So these are real life stories of people who were directly affected, because it's one thing to say many Namibians were affected, but it's another story to actually hear from a fisherman about how corruption actually took bread out of this person's mouth, not only him but his family as well, and also the impacts that come with that. There's a mental, there's an effect on your mental well-being, there's an effect on your economic livelihood, and so many other factors, and it's important to highlight those elements.
Yeah, I think you have a very good point there. I love the fact that we are getting now a balanced sort of overview of what really happened. Now, in our next story, Dundee Precious Metals has sold its Tsumeb smelter to Chinese mining company Sinomine Resource Group for 49 million Namibian dollars, million US dollars rather. It has announced. Reflecting on sale, Dundee Precious Metal Chief Executive Chief David Rai said the transaction was done to position the company to focus on its gold mining assets. We are pleased to announce the sale of the Tsumeb smelter, which is consistent with our strategic objectives of focusing on our gold mining assets and simplifying our portfolio going forward. We are extremely proud of the investments that we have made to transform Tsumeb's operation and environmental performance into a specialized custom smelter with a highly skilled workforce, David said. Dundee Precious Metals acquired the smelter in 2010. And finally, Esther, your thoughts on this story. Was this a good move?
I think every business has its priorities, and they have an outline of where they want to go in future and what they want to prioritize. And as the CEO said, that they're going to focus more on gold mining. However, I think having a smelter was definitely a good thing for Dundee Precious Metals, because this helped to process not only their own minerals but that of third parties as well, which meant there was an additional income coming in there. And with the change in ownership of this smelter, I just hope that nobody on the ground has been affected in terms of job losses. So they did mention that they're going to make sure that a smooth transition takes place. I just hope that people's employment is a priority for them.
Definitely. Esther Kamati, thank you very much for joining us and for sharing your valuable contributions to our show today.
Thank you very much.
You are welcome. And on that note, we will return shortly after the break with economic news. Stay with us. In economic news tonight, Nedbank Group Limited says it opposed increasing. We are experiencing technical difficulties. We will be right back shortly. In economic news tonight, Nedbank Namibia says it is not opposed to localizing a portion of its local operations and has initiated talks with Bank of Namibia of its intent to cede a part of its ownership to Namibians. Nedbank Namibia is the only commercial bank among the traditional top 4 banks that does not have any direct local ownership, save for its dual listing on the Namibia Stock Exchange, which allows local investment managers participation in NGL via share trading. NGL Executive for Africa, Terence Sibia, said the bank was in constant communication with the Bank of Namibia, which is currently championing the cause for increased localization of commercial banks and was consulting on the new equitable economic empowerment framework. We are in constant touch with the Bank of Namibia and other relevant bodies like the Namibia stakeholders like NEEF and key stakeholders within the Namibian market on the journey to localization, Sibia said. The banking group was also assessing how previous localization processes were driven at other commercial banks operating in Namibia, Sibia explained. The localization of the Nedbank Namibia would, however, not only be driven by a need to comply to local regulatory requirements, but will also satisfy NGL's other shareholders, Sibia pointed out. The Ministry of Finance in 2009 launched the Financial Sector Charter, a voluntary adopted transformation charter. And now let's have a look at our economic indicators. The Namibian dollar trades for 23 Namibian dollars 88 cents to 1 British pound, 20 Namibian dollars 44 cents gets you 1 euro, and 18 Namibian dollars 71 cents gets you 1 US dollar. Three commodities have gone up with 0.21%, platinum with 1.74%, and copper with 1.52%, while Brent crude oil has gone down with 0.01%. After the break, we return with the international news where we discuss Polish farmers' protest against the EU rules. After the break. In international news tonight, throwing smoke bombs and lighting fires, thousands of angry farmers demonstrated in Warsaw against European Union regulations and cheap Ukrainian imports, with police reporting that 2 officers had been injured and a dozen protesters arrested. Some demonstrators on Wednesday tried to force their way past security railings into Parliament grounds, according to police. Farmers also organized stricter blockades on roads across the country. Polish farmers have been blocking border crossing with Ukraine since last month to protest against what they say is unfair competition from goods entering from Ukraine. Ukraine has seen its agriculture sector crippled by Russia's invasion in 2022. Many of its major export routes through the Black Sea have been blocked and its farmland rendered unusable by warfare. In a bid to help Kyiv economically, the EU in 2022 scrapped tariffs on Ukrainian goods transiting the 27-nation bloc by the road, but logistical problems means a lot of the Ukrainian cereal exports destined for non-EU countries have accumulated in Poland, undercutting local producers. The border blockades and grain dispute have strained ties between neighbors, even as Poland has shown staunch support since the Russian invasion. Farmers in several other European countries have also been protesting for weeks over this condition. Poland's Prime Minister Donald Tusk said last week the government was mulling a temporary closure of the border with Ukraine for goods. In our next story, the Hong Kong government will send the Article 23 National Security Bill to the legislature on Friday, possibly cracking down further on dissent in the former British colony, with the city leader John Lee calling for it to be passed at full speed. The move to enact new laws encompassing espionage, state secrets, and sedition comes a little over a week after a month-long public consultation period for the bill ended. It will still require several rounds of debate in the legislative Legislative Council and the convening of a special meeting for the first and second reading, with the entire process possibly taking weeks. The geopolitics has become increasingly complex and national security risk remains imminent, a government statement said. The government said the Security Bureau and Justice Department had been working at full steam to complete the bill drafting. Completing the legislative work even one day earlier means we can more effectively safeguard national security one day earlier, Lee said, calling for it to be passed at full speed. Critics, including the U.S. government, says that the law will further narrow freedoms in the global financial hub with proposals that are too broad and vague. Article 23 could be used to eliminate dissent through fear of arrest and detention, the U.S. State Department said in a statement in late February. The gazetting of the bill on Friday will give the first detailed view of full scope of the legislation, including details of proposed lengths of sentencing. After the break, we return with the weather. Stay with us. In local sports news tonight, Walfish Bay Private School will host a spirited and exciting weekend of athletics for member schools of Namibia Private Schools Organization at the Fenita Sports Stadium in Swakopmund on Friday and Saturday. The event will see 21 private schools from all over the country and an expected 1,200 participants of both primary and secondary school competing in the age groups under 7 to under 19. Network TV's production team will bring viewers our live broadcast of the event on both days. The live link of Boxcast will be shared on Facebook page MyZone. Friday's program starts with a team entrances and welcoming speeches before the first event from 8:30 a.m. until approximately 8 p.m. In our next story, last weekend, the Vento Golf Club proudly hosted the second of 8 AB InBev monthly medal competitions for the year. Based on handicaps, Hanko Schmidt, a player in the C Division, won the overall competition. The medal series will be used to determine the club's medal champion of the year. The competitors qualify for the Tournament of Champions at the end of the year, where the best 24 players are split into two groups of 12 and compete over 54 holes. 75 players participated, which is a good turnout. The competition was interrupted by welcome rain for about an hour. In our final story, Chovania Bezuidenhout, one of Namibia's best junior tennis players, was on Monday awarded a scholarship by the Frank Fredericks Foundation. The generous amount of $10,000 for the year 2024 will contribute towards her tennis expenses and educational needs. The foundation aims to assist athletes of any sports coach in which FF sees the potential to contribute to Namibia's sports excellence. This is the second time the 14-year-old from Okahanja has been recognized by FF for her remarkable growth and achievements. From 2020 to 2021, Bezuidenhout also received sponsorship from the foundation towards her school and sports career. Sauma Shingenge, FF's public relations officer, said Bezuidenhout has over the years shown impeccable growth in her tennis career. It is for this reason they have given her a scholarship when she reached out for assistance. After the break, we return with our goodbyes. Well, thank you very much for watching our show tonight. Please do remember that Sunset News screens on DSTV channel 285 and GoTV 25 every weekday from 7:30 p.m. To 8 p.m. And on that note, it's all our love, all our light. Good night.